Liar Princess and the Blind Prince is a charming adventure that feels like a long-lost Brothers Grimm tale turned into a video game. Through its storybook-like aesthetic, the journey will take you across the forest as you risk everything to save those closest to you. Liar Princess tells a dark, ironic tale of a wolf monster and a young prince that's borderline sad as much as it is adorable. One day a young prince hears some singing deep inside the nearby forest. Following said beautiful voice, the prince comes across a wolf monster that happens to have the most beautiful voice the prince has ever heard. Astonished by his presence and the fear of being repulsed by their own appearance, the wolf shoos away the prince, scratching his face and blinding him in the process. Angered by his son's appearance, the king banishes the blind prince to a dungeon where he stays in isolation. Riddled with the guilt of what just happened, the wolf monster takes it upon themselves to save the prince and try to restore their eyesight. Not wanting to frighten the prince with their own appearance though, the wolf gives up their singing voice in exchange for the ability to turn into a princess. And now in a tragic turn of events, the wolf guides the prince to restore what he has lost, all at the cost of what brought him to the wolf monster in the first place. It's a tragic tale, but also one of compassion, all engulfed in what looks like a world told from the mind of Tim Burton. The entire narrative is voiced and told through a single female voice actor that tells a story in Japanese along with English subtitles. The combination of the two, along with the story's almost fairy tale-like complexion, feels like a mother telling her child one last story before bed. In that sense, it's a game that, despite being sad in premise, feels magical, almost whimsical, like a long-lost fairy tale classic. After a long, and I mean a very long, what felt like 10-minute prologue intro, you're finally given control of the characters. When it comes to gameplay, the Liar Princess and the Blind Prince is both, in the literal and figurative sense, a walk in the park. As the wolf, you can transform between the wolf and the princess to guide the prince's safety and hopefully restore his vision. It's a dangerous journey though, with paths filled with all sorts of different types of monsters. In your wolf form, you're this giant heavy creature able to take down all that lies ahead. On the opposite end, as a princess, you can hold the prince's hand and guide him along to the next destination. That's the core mechanic of the game, but it branches off into new subsections to create puzzles in the environment. Early on, for example, you get the option to on command tell the prince where to move either forward or backward by himself. Being blind, his movement is quite limited, but showing him where to walk introduces new forms of puzzles, like activating different switches while the pair is separated. Most of the challenge in these puzzles came from figuring out a safe way of bringing the prince along for the journey. Sometimes that would mean just activating some switches, moving platforms around, or straight up just timing the movement perfectly so the prince wouldn't directly walk into a monster. Calling it a challenge is an extreme oversight though, because the Liar Princess is incredibly easy. Outside of maybe one moment throughout the 6-hour adventure, I never felt stumped by anything that the game threw at me puzzle-wise. I think that's okay for a video game. Games don't really need to be challenging to be entertaining, but there needs to be some sort of substance there to still make it worthwhile. For a game like Journey, that was the emotional rollercoaster that was created out of just traveling on this journey, that still somehow managed to create an impact through its environmental storytelling. Liar Princess, on the other hand, had a great backdrop for a story premise and a lovely art style, but everything with the gameplay just wasn't that captivating. It also doesn't help that the gameplay can get a bit buggy at times. I've had moments where the prince would just get stuck in a loop animation of running but still standing in place. There's also this weird game design choice where the actual game doesn't tell you how high of a drop is too high for the characters. I've had moments where I think I'd survive a jump only to die, and then the complete opposite too. It's not just a story that reminds me of a children's book, but the entire art style for Liar Princess literally looks like it's ripped out of Tim Burton or the Brothers Grimm. The whole time I was playing the game, I was constantly thinking of Corpse Bride but in 2D, and I really like that art style. There's a great use of layered backgrounds where you can make out vines and bushes in the foreground, while blurred out trees in the mist linger in the background. It gives off a nice atmospheric tone that feels like you're inside the child's imagination. Playing this review copy on the Nintendo Switch, the visuals scaled well in both dock and handheld mode. The characters appeared sharp and crisp whether I was playing on a 42-inch TV or on the 6-inch display on the Switch. In fact, playing in handheld mode was sort of my favorite mode because it sort of helped better sell the charm of this game feeling like a storybook. Perfectly matching the fantasy theme of the game, the Liar Princess's soundtrack is nothing short of fantastic. It feels mischievous for every bit of playfulness it feels. Walking through the at times dark and gloomy forest, the combination of piano and harp draws you deeper into the crevices of the level. Parallel to those slower calming songs are the more epic tracks that happen during the more climactic scenarios of the adventure. They're not too frequent as the string pieces, but when they do show up, they certainly make an impact on the scene and make it better for it. The one thing I would have liked to see improve with the audio, in general, would have been the mixing. confusing. Oftentimes during cutscenes I couldn't make out the narration of the voice actress. That may not be a big issue for those that don't understand or speak Japanese, but as someone that can understand both English and Japanese, it was difficult to make out what she would say over the loud music. Even for those that don't understand the language, I could see the audio being mixed poorly, being a bit of a distraction. Ultimately, while I love the story behind the game and the characters, the entire middle section of the game, the gameplay, just sort of fell flat for me. I love the characters, they're absolutely charming, and their start and end of the journey were my favorite parts of the game. The entire middle 5 hours though felt forgettable outside of the art style and the nice background tunes. Perhaps this would have worked out better as a short animated film or just a short, but as a video game, the actual game part of it was pretty forgettable. It's one of those games where I like it, but I can't really say it's a great game, just an okay time with a lovely story behind it. I give The Liar Princess and The Blind Prince a just barely 7 out of 10. Thank you all very much for watching my review. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more reviews every single week. You can also check out my Patreon and Discord links in the description down below. It's a great way to get in contact with me or just request reviews of games coming out in the future. As always, I hope you all have a great day and keep on gaming.